Ella's hand trembles against the ceramic mug, fingers drifting slowly over the rim like they're tracing the edge of a memory she can't quite catch. Steam rises from her untouched tea, curling in lazy spirals that dissolve into the air between you. I feel like something's slipping away from me, again. Her voice is low, breaking slightly at the edge, nothing like the girl who used to steal fireflies with you in the backyard. The clock's ticking seems louder than it should be, a sharp punctuation to her confession. You tap the corner of your notebook, faint smudges of ink staining your fingertips. "What do you mean?" you ask, keeping your words measured, lighter than the thud in your chest. Ella doesn't look up. Her eyes are fixed on the mug as though she's trying to remember why she's holding it. "The story about that summer," she starts, her lips pressing into a thin line before twitching into something like a smile. Something pretending to be a smile. "The one with the canoe and the snake." Her gaze finally lifts, but her eyes are hollow. "You told me about it last week, and I don't know what happened. I kept trying to play the memory in my head, but there's nothing there, just static." Her words don't make sense. The canoe was hers, the snake hers too, curled and hidden beneath a rotting log, sending you both shrieking into the shallows. She told the story every Thanksgiving, laughter spilling through gravy-scented air like a promise she'd never forget. But now, sitting here, she feels far away. "You were there," you remind her, the phrase sharp, almost harsh, louder than you meant it to be. Her face crumples into a grimace of confusion. "I was?" The room takes on a weight, pressing flat against your lungs. You could swear the sepia-toned photos lining the wall right behind her shoulder are fading by the second. Family photos captured in mismatched frames are dim, the edges yellowing as if they've been forgotten by the house itself. Your hands go still, not tapping, not holding anything, not reaching. You wander the park later, needing air sharp enough to pierce the fog settling in your mind. A child's laugh echoes nearby, small and sweet and carefree at first. You pause mid-step, ears pricking to the sound, but it halts too suddenly, tapering into silence. You turn, scanning the playground, your eyes catching the movement of a boy, maybe 10, standing mid-swing by the fountain. "Go on, tell me again," a parent's voice urges. It's overly patient, the kind of tone meant to coax. The boy stares up at them, lips parting, then closing again. "I forgot the end," he mumbles. His fingers tighten around the faded red ball in his hands, the peeling paint flaking off like sunburned skin. "It's the joke you always tell," the parent insists, brightly enough to be false. "Every time we come here." But the boy doesn't answer. His face shifts into something too old for his years, a stiffness in his jaw, the defensive slump of his shoulders. He drops the ball and looks away. Behind you, the breeze stirs dead leaves into the fountain's basin, where the water has grown murky. Broken sunlight fragments over the surface, but it feels cold, cold enough to notice. The water, tinged faintly green, swirls as leaves circle aimlessly within it. The bell above the diner door jangles weakly. Its sound is wrong, tinny instead of cheery. You step into the familiar fluorescence, but you're greeted by something decidedly unfamiliar: the silence. The waitress behind the counter, Joan, always threw you a greeting when you walked in. "Late again, huh? Or coffee's fresh on account of you?" Not this time. She's staring at her name tag instead, her fingers brushing over each letter as though she's trying to decode what they mean. "Joan?" you ask softly, stepping closer. She looks up too slowly, her mouth opening a fraction before closing just the same. There's no recognition in her face, just blank space where her sharp humor used to be. "Be right with you," she mutters flatly, her tone like a recording played at half speed. Somewhere in the corner booth, the jukebox hums to life, spitting static before settling into a looped melody that skips every 7 seconds. This is Skeleton Crew Saturday. Everything else should be routine. But this, routine doesn't feel like this. Not at all. And you can't stop replaying Ella's words in your head. Static. Why does joy look so fragile here, like it could vanish from everyone's face at any moment? Like it already is? The notebook in your pocket feels heavier than before. You wake to the faint creak of floorboards. The glow of Ella's desk light spills under your closed door, stuttering in its familiar jitter. Her table lamp always hums before its bulb dies. You hear it too, the persistent tap of moth wings against the lampshade, like a muted metronome ticking time you can't make sense of. There's a weight against your chest, a dream's residue maybe, but no details remain. Just that sense of loss pressing deeper as the moments stretch. You rise, heart sluggish in your ribs, and crack open the door. Ella's room is chaos. Crumpled pages blanket the floor, cluttered waves cresting at her feet. She doesn't notice you enter, her eyes glued to her journal. Each stroke of her pen cuts into the paper with frantic, deliberate effort. Words overlap. Sentences crumble into nonsense halfway through. Her pale face glistens under the unforgiving glow of the desk lamp. The room's wallpaper, sun-faded daisies, seems duller than memory. The only color, streaks of black ink smudged along Ella's wrist. You call her name softly. She flinches. Her hand tightens on the pen, her knuckles blooming white. She doesn't turn. Her throat sounds raw, voice cracking. I can't. I wanted to write it all down. I thought it would help, but it doesn't feel real anymore. You step closer, careful not to crush the discarded paper underfoot. Your shadow stretches over the desk, and she finally looks up. Her eyes search your face. The same eyes that used to sparkle with mischief back when recess was a kingdom and every game felt infinite. Now they're bleary and distant, like she's waiting for a flicker of recognition that never comes. I can't remember Danny's face. The words barely land, soft, frayed at the edges. We were always together. You remember that, right? Her running buddy, her partner in endless schemes during summer afternoons. He was inseparable from her childhood, but now her panic infects your memory. The image of him feels blurred, like a figure behind frosted glass. "Elle," you whisper, throat tight. "He taught you to swim, he." But now your own words falter. What color was his hair? Did he have freckles? You stop the thought, tap on your notebook's corner, brittle rhythm filling the silence. Ella grips your arm suddenly. You're remembering it wrong. Or maybe I am. Or what if he's just gone? The weight of her question hovers longer than it should. The atmosphere in the archive feels oppressive. Stale air thickens with each breath, carrying dust that sticks unpleasantly to your throat. You'd forgotten how distant the lights were in here, small bulbs spaced out too far, casting pools of dimness in uneven intervals. The shadows in the corners almost seem to shift. The shelves, sagging with time, lean under the weight of decaying leather-bound books. The spines crack where glue has withered away. You pace between rows, the drone of fluorescent lights vibrating faintly above. Everything feels muted, smothered. But one folder stands out, an oddity in neatly labeled chaos. Unmarked, its edges frayed as though chewed by something far less benign than time. Inside, an old ledger, thick yet incomplete. Loose ink strokes catalog the town's life from decades prior, births, deaths, festivals. You recognize the dates of each harvest jubilee, the same ones Ella used to organize before everything started falling apart. Every line feels so measured, so ordinary, until you reach a break in the handwriting. Torn page edges hint at something ripped deliberately, leaving faint ghosts of missing ink beneath the tear. Just one line survives. They took what made us happy. Your breath curls, hot but shallow. You flip the page, suddenly hungry for more, but there's nothing else. Just silence pressing in, filling the crevices with what you can't name yet. From the far corner, something scrapes once. Metal on cement, it shatters the quiet like a bone snapping underfoot. You don't move. You don't blink. Even the air feels frozen in the wake of that noise. The echo fades. A hollow absence follows, colder than before. The vibrant decorations drape across the street, but something is wrong. The energy of the festival feels muted, distant. Colored streamers hang limp in the still air, their edges damp from last night's dew. Children weave half-heartedly among the crowd, their shrill laughter absent, replaced by the soft rustle of coats brushing past each other. You notice a cluster of balloons tethered near the town hall. They sway erratically despite the lack of breeze. Something unseen stirs between the spaces where sound should be. Bright confetti floats forlornly in the stagnant air. You stand near the makeshift stage outside the diner. The band begins to play, notes warm and familiar at first. That old melody used to signal promise, memories rising like the smell of cinnamon rolls baking in your grandmother's kitchen. But then the rhythm stumbles, a clarinet squeals wrong, and the guitarist's strum halts. The pianist's hands hover over keys as if they've forgotten which ones to press. The music stops entirely. Murmurs ripple through the crowd, eyes darting toward the musicians like knives. On stage, Mark, the band leader, the man who once hummed this tune as he built Christmas floats by hand, holds his instrument limply at his side. His mouth opens and closes like a gaping fish, words lost before they form. "Sorry," he croaks, finally turning. I don't remember the rest." His voice cracks not with age but guilt. The crowd stares, uncomprehending, until that guilt spreads like smoke, suffocating the festive air. No one laughs, no one moves to fill the silence. They simply stand, marionettes with cut strings, waiting for someone else to propel them. "That's—" Ella's half-formed sentence beside you fractures the tension. You glance at her. She's gripping that chipped coffee mug again, empty but clutched tightly, knuckles stark white. "He's always known that song," she whispers, the custody of certainty slipping from her voice. "Hasn't he?" A single balloon erupts with a loud pop, its remains drifting into the gutter. The uncertainty lingers in her eyes longer than it should. She catches you staring and looks down, embarrassed, rubbing the rim of the mug like it might carry an answer. Before you can respond, the crowd begins to dissipate, drawn away like ink bleeding into water. Their footsteps grow faint as they move down the street, forgetting, no, abandoning, what just happened. Your chest tightens. Whatever this is, it's spreading faster. You reach instinctively for your notebook, its corners already softened and smudged under your habitual tapping. Scribbling half a thought on Mark's sudden lapse, you find the weight of the unanswered multiplying in tandem with your urgency. You need to make sense of this. Today, now. Ella's house smells faintly of musty fabric and stew left too long in a cold crockpot. You settle at the kitchen table as the journal sits between you and Ella like a third presence. Heavy. Accusatory. The journal feels heavier in your hands than it should as you flip through it, scanning for something, anything that makes sense. Ella's handwriting, once curling and confident, degrades as you turn the pages. Letters stagger sideways, words falter. Entire sentences collapse, half-formed into scribbled trails of ink. Shadows lengthen unnaturally over the pages as the light dims further in the room. One page is smeared. Water, sweat. You rub at the stains, but the marks remain, irretrievably smudged. Ella leans closer, her breath shallow and uneven. "That used to be, the summer we spent." Her voice trips, stumbles. "No, the lake." Her hand hovers over the page, shaking slightly, then drops. "Doesn't matter. It does matter." You want to scream. Her gaze searches yours like an apology she won't speak aloud, but something darker glints behind it, the edge of resigning to blankness. A faint, shuddering reflection distorts in the glass back door. Just you, Ella, and something unrecognizable. You flip hurriedly to the last entry. A single sentence scrawled too hard, deep enough to emboss the pages beneath it. Some things are gone even before you notice. It's signed with her initials, but the letters sag wrong, as if Ella couldn't quite remember how to shape the E. The ominous creak of settling wood overhead freezes the moment. It isn't just her memories. It's her joy, you realize, the emotional core hollowed. What's left is worse than blankness, absence wrapped in the imitation of living. The forest feels wrong tonight, as though it's holding its breath, waiting for you to step too far. You hesitate at the tree line, the wind stalls, too still for autumn. It should bite, or at least tug at you. Instead, the air feels heavy, damp, thick enough to choke on. A sound drifts from somewhere ahead, faint. Whispering. No, less human than that, like leaves rustling, but slower. Calculated. It calls you by name. Your breath shudders as you step forward. Something snaps underfoot. Not a branch. Softer, splitting in layers. You crouch, run your fingers along it. Old bark, gray and curling inward. But the tree it belongs to is nowhere in sight. Just dirt. Only dirt. You stand too fast. The world tilts. The trees ahead, brittle outlines sketched in ash gray against a sky too black for stars, seem thinner than before, like the woods themselves are hollowing out. The whisper rises again, closer. The light fades behind you like a lid closing. Darkness breathes at your neck. The notebook in your hand feels too warm. Wrongly warm. Tap, tap. Reflexive, pointless. A flicker. Something shapeless slips between the trunks. A shadow with shifting edges, too sharp to be shadow. Its body is like a crack in reality, rimmed in dim, dying specks of light. The whispers lock,